And that was what he said was his reason for cooperating. I'm not going to be loyal and sit down for 20-something years for people who clearly weren't loyal to me. Well, look at this situation. If this is true, Lil Durk allegedly felt like Jams cooperated and got his baby mama killed. 6ix9ine's baby mama allegedly got hit. They actually did a hit on Jam's baby mama, allegedly.
I would say there's not much linking Durk to the murder of baby moms. Baby moms, I believe, was a male woman, and she got killed, and they did arrest somebody for the murder, but it was a 15-year-old, and there was no clear ties to Durk. You know, this quote-unquote streets in the narrative was saying that was a way to try to warn or scare him about snitching.
Homie, you couldn't have just talked to him. You couldn't have just, said something. You just had to go and flat out kill his baby mama. That's a crazy accusation right there. That right there, if that would have proved to be true, I mean, how many of y'all would sympathize with Jam? If someone went and killed your baby mama because they thought you were going to snitch, not you. Which doesn't even make any fucking sense. Why not just hit Jam if that's the case? But not that. They're going to keep the killer, but they're just going to make the killer even madder because they're going to knock his baby mama off and then be like, yeah, you better not. You better not. And it's like, what? Now, a 15-year-old boy was sentenced to 5 years in juvenile detention after pleading guilty to the July 19th, 2024 shooting of a U.S. Postal Service letter carrier, Octavia Redmond, who's 48 years old, in Chicago's West Pullman neighborhood. Just before 11:40 in the morning, Redmond was delivering mail on the 12,000 block of South Harvard Ave when a man exited a stolen white Dodge Durango and approached her. He shot her multiple times at close range before fleeing. She was taken to Christ Hospital and later died from her injuries. Authorities used private surveillance video and an anonymous tip to track the suspect's movements before and after the shooting. The stolen vehicle was later found abandoned and torched in the West Chatham neighborhood. Prosecutors also linked the gun to a separate battery case. The teen was arrested in Cedar Rapids, Iowa on September 30th, 2024, extradited to Chicago and charged with first-degree murder. On July 1st, 2026, Cook County Judge Sanju Green sentenced the juvenile to 5 years in the Illinois Department of Juvenile Justice after he pleaded guilty to first-degree murder. The case was prosecuted in juvenile court, and the judge applied juvenile court sentencing guidelines. He was sentenced on June 3rd, 2026, so this year. Redmond, who had worked for USPS for 15 years, was described by neighbors as a mother to the neighborhood. The National Association of Letter Carriers and other postal workers rallied, calling for stronger protection for carriers and renewing calls for improved safety in the city. I mean, I don't think that's going to matter when baby daddy is OTFJ and he's out there spanking shit, but the fact that a 15-year-old got booked on that, I didn't even know that they could run a first-degree murder case in juvenile court. I would assume that charge is big enough, first-degree murder. There is no charge bigger than that. I would assume you can get straight to adult court. You can be adjudicated as an adult. You can go to the adult county jail and be held in a different wing until you turn 18. He only got 5 years for killing. I think I can hit him. That's insane. He's gonna be out. You know, he's probably gonna get time served because he's been locked up already for 3 years. This kid's gonna be out and he's gonna be under 20 years old with a body of his
Minor, he pleaded guilty to killing a postal worker who spent 5 years in juvenile detention. Octavia Redmond was killed in July of 2024 while she was delivering mail. The juvenile had gone out of a stolen vehicle and shot her multiple times at close range. That person pleaded guilty to murdering her last month.
This morning, Chicago police have released surveillance video of a person of interest in the deadly shooting of a postal worker. The shooting happened last month in the West Pullman neighborhood. More D-Waves live in the newsroom this morning with a look at that new video, so we'll go, what does it show? Well, first off, we know the U.S. Postal Inspection Service is already offering a $250,000 reward for information leading to an arrest and conviction in this.
Well, no wonder they got the tip then. They offered them $250,000. And that's the thing is, like, you gotta understand, what are the chances that 15-year-olds in Chicago are getting sent on hits, knowing that the punishment is going to be extreme? And then the same person that sent you on the hit drops the tip to get you booked so they can collect the $250 after paying you like $5K to go do the murder. What if that actually happened? Right? You give a 15-year-old $10K, he goes and kills somebody. He ain't gonna get that much time. He got 5 years in this case. But then you drop the tip and you walk with $250,000. And the person you wanted to get killed got killed.
This case, and now Chicago police are hoping the new video gets them closer to the killer. So here's that video on your screen. Part of it shows a man getting to a white Dodge Durango near 70th and Kingdom. This was right before the shooting. Then at some point, the same video shows a man getting out of that Durango near 121st and Harvard. He runs across the street and back a few. Then he runs back to the car before it drives off. Police say on that day, Friday, July 19th, around 11:40 in the morning, a 48-year-old postal worker on a TV in Redmond was in front of her home near 121st and Harvard when a man walked to her and shot her. She died at the hospital. The Dodge Durango used in the shooting was later found abandoned and torched in the middle of a field on South Holiday Avenue. Now, aiding with information on this shooting was Exeter Home Area 2 Detective.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty extreme. And I can't imagine being the OTF and seeing that play out. Especially if he's thinking it came from his own people. Like, damn, they really sent somebody up with people in the family. How am I going to play this out? Obviously, Jam doesn't have the power to go at Dirk because Dirk is surrounded by people at all times. Dirk's a multi-millionaire. Dirk doesn't even live in Chicago. So, Jam doesn't necessarily have the capability to get at him. Well, what's something he could do? Cooperate. If he cooperates with the feds, he saves himself from any crazy amount of prison time. But he's also essentially putting away the person who allegedly got his baby mamas killed.
Great reflections is our individuality. You are an individual, I'm an individual, we're all individuals with more knowledge and the ability to share that.
Now, as far as the history of OTF Jam, his real name is Casey Hester, and this is mugshots.com. They upload regular mugshots, but they also seem to have a lot of prison mugshots. This is the same website that posted the picture of me with the infamous slash that everybody said was a fake picture. And it actually tells you in this photo. This official record was collected from a law enforcement agency on November of 2000. So this got uploaded. They got 11/16/2013. Everybody said I faked this and I photoshopped it, but I was actually in prison when this hit the internet. I was at Lancaster's work camp. But yeah, so I mean, unless this is the fake picture, we have OTF Jam right here. And this was when he was at the Northern Reception Center, his parent institution, Correctional Center. And he was in there for aggravated battery discharge of a firearm and sentenced to 14 years. So again, I believe they said he was released in 2022, but other than that, I wasn't really able to find much details on the shooting that put him away. Now, interestingly enough, we spoke on the reason 6ix9ine gave for cooperating. We compared it to the alleged reason why Jam is cooperating, and academics the other day would ask 6ix9ine what he would have done if he was in Lil Durk's position. Hey,
If I was in Durk's position, when we first got indicted for the first behind, I would have paid only up OTF money, OTF Jam, because that's what we united. Now, one person was chosen. I said that, and a lot of people didn't get. When you want a dream team, one is on me, one is on my man, one is on my man, and then there are reasons for that. Ain't no break on us now because everything's going to get back to it. I do that. And in first position, what would I do, right?
Now that sounds like the best route, lawyering everybody up. But at the same time, if you feel like Jam is already cooperating, cooperating, there's not much you can do. You know what I mean? It sounds good, but if he's already cooperating, and especially if you're the one that got his baby mama hit, you're not gonna do nothing. Realistically. But this murder has not been introduced to this federal case, so keep that in mind. This is just an example of an alleged reason why Jim could be motivated enough to do this. Aside from saving his own ass, there could be some animosity over the fact that his baby mom was killed. But let me know y'all's thoughts and comments in the comment section. It's 1090 Jake. I'm rocking with y'all, and y'all rocking with me. Until next time.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Base 44, an AI creation platform made for anyone with an idea and a drive to bring it to life. Describe what you want and watch it take shape.
Lil Durk is done. He's finished. Ever since he got arrested on those federal murder for hire charges, anybody that's been following the story as closely as me knew this was the end for the rap superstar. The king of drill and snitched on himself so much since the murder of Congo Rondo's cousin Lil Pamela. It seemed very unlikely that he was going to beat these charges. But unfortunately, this is much bigger than Durk. Because just as finished as Lil Durk's own career is, so too is his crew/label/gang OTF. If you ask the music industry, they're for platinum records, sold-out shows, they're a collective of rappers who put family first. But according to the prosecutors behind the label, the Rap Collective is a shadowy criminal organization structured by a modern-day mafia with a deep belief in loyalty and a mission enforced by fear and violence. So when it comes to the members of OTF, apart from Durk, it seems like most of them are less known for their rap records and more known for their criminal records. The OTF members' names repeatedly surfacing in cases of shootings, robberies, drug deals, home invasions, kidnappings, murders, alleged get-backs, or revenge killings across different states. So at this point, OTF is important and the label is just as busted as Lil Durk. Now the prosecutors are asking the bigger question, just how many people are involved in Durk's criminal empire, how many of them, if any, will be able to escape justice. To the public, OTF eventually stood to his family in the streets. These letters originally meant only Trey folks. This is a reference to a historic Chicago gang was part of the Folk Nation, specifically the Black Disciples, with the word Trey representing the number 3, something manifested in a 3-finger hand sign synonymous with the Black Disciples. So to understand how Durk's OTF crew, or only Trey folks, started as a genuine set of the Black Disciples, we have to trace the gang back to its early beginnings in South Chicago to take off the colours. The Black Disciples stronghold at 6217 South Monument Avenue, a building known in the community as the Castle. Across the street from it, Lake Parkway Gardens, which would later become known worldwide as Oblong. Back inside Calumet, the Black Disciples built one of the biggest drug operations in their history, with reports claiming that the crack heroin trade was bringing in $45,000 to $300,000 a day there. At that time, this building was protected by armed searchers at the doors and snipers had been stationed on the roof, with rifles and night vision goggles, with the profits of this operation being laundered into apartment buildings, an Atlanta nightclub, and a rap label known as MOB. After an undercover officer was caught during a search and exposed by his bulletproof vest, then shot back and tried to run away. From that point on, the castle became known across Chicago as one of the most dangerous places for the police. Often the Black Disciples even hijacked the Christian radio frequency, turning what drivers expected to be religious programming into profanity-laced gangster rap. Behind the music, they also used it to warn the tower about police and cops coming to the area. By the mid-2000s, federal law enforcement indicted 146 leaders, including Marvel the Magnificent Thompson, also connected with Varney and Varma Voka, a pair of infamous Black Disciple twins known as the Bentley Twins, a nickname they got due to their love of Bentley cars. Years later, that family history became directly tied to OTF, so back then, after the raid, city officials would end up tearing the building down, which scattered families, Black Disciple members, and future rap figures all across the south side of Chicago.
2005, I believe, or 2004, when the feds came around my head. So, man, they took like 45 of the guys. So, it was all I did. You know what I'm saying? You know what I'm saying? Me, Reese, Fernie, Jay Rock, like, it was a handful of, but basically all I did, that was trying to came that build.
Later on, O-Block's Big Mike would break down the history, saying that this demolition of the castle pushed black disciples into the neighborhoods of their biggest ops, the gangster disciples, where some of those BDs and GDs would switch sides, quickly making old friends into enemies.
When that caveman building got tore down, we went from the caveman building to Eberhard. And we stayed in Parkwood. And when they went towards Eberhard, they stopped with the gangsters. And when they stopped the gangsters, they created a problem. So we was in school beefing at Dulles. He was trying to get that foot. We were making embarrassed in school. And going up to this the next time.
So, among those people tied to that history were Chief Wood and OTF Lil Varney, two young brothers hailing from the Calumet building, whose father was Big Varney, one of the Bentley twins that was running the drug operation in the castle. So that lineage gave them credibility when Chief Wood began pushing the Only Trey Folks, or OTF, as a new alliance of black disciples for those members who had been displaced by the destruction of the Calumet building. Years later, as Lil Durk's music career took off globally, rather than a gang, OTF would become a label. Rather than Only Trey Folks, it would be known as Only the Family in an effort to create a cleaner, more corporate-friendly brand now that they were breaking into the industry. While Chief Keef and THF Barbara were two young street kids who moved into the Parkway Gardens, aka O-Block, while Lil Reese, his father Big Reese, was also arrested and relocated to an area called Lamrock. Likewise, the destruction of these towers displacing people also dictated where OTF's future ops would be living.
Well, you knew J-Man from the Calumet.
Yeah. He used to smack him around my brother. Like, his daddy know my daddy type. His daddy used to be with my daddy. My daddy used to be his daddy up type.
For example, FYB J Main, his father was locked up during the crackdown too, and after leaving Calumet, J Main and his family would set roots around an area known as Jarrow City in Tukaville, 63rd, where he would build a close relationship with FBG Duck.
So you grew up in the Calumet buildings?
Hell yeah, I grew up in the caveman buildings. So y'all probably know from the caveman buildings. I'm from the bread. That's how I'm like, damn, folks. You grew up in the caveman building? Ain't no reason growing up. So cool.
Over the years, J Main has said in multiple interviews that he and Lil Reese are cousins.
You know that Lil Reese might be his cousin.
What you mean? Like, when people say Lil Reese not my cousin, bro, I get offended, bro. Why would you want to say Lil Reese? Let's start that.
In response, Lil Reese denied the claim.
I had an interview with FYB J Man with the cousin. He said it do hit different, folks, and they
Only for J Main to propose a DNA test.
on video box deal, boy. Since you want to talk about we not cousins, bro, I need a DNA test then. Prove it then, bro. So we not cousins, bro. Why? Because I'm from 63rd, bro. Because I'm from 63rd, now you don't want to be my cousin, bro. You let this streets get too much to your head, no reason, bro.
Around the same period, legendary op of Lil Durk's and arguable gang serial killer 051 Melly would relocate with his family from the buildings around 49th Calumet to an area tied to OTF's allies 600. So Melly would grow close with kids on the opposite side of Washington Park, eventually form a rival gang set 051 Young Money. But by the time drill music exploded through Chicago and all over America, the demolition of the Calumet buildings had essentially completely redrawn the Chicago ganglands and pressing the start button on an unstoppable wave of violence. And that history didn't just shape OTF's name, but also ended up shaping the lives of the people that were closest to Lil Durk as his label Gang grew.
His design, we made studios over the world. So record, we do it through strategy, design, experience, technology. What we are creating is not of those, but overall meaning brands, cultural values, and ultimately cultural connection. We always worked in this way that was like trying to put ourselves at the end of the finished result as early as possible. Yeah. That can be tough just because it's not visualize it or replicate it with a lot more. So having Flora and our techniques take us there, it gives us a better idea of whether it's the right neighborhood and it helps us make bigger moves quicker. I think the technique could be described as like a compressed workflow, a very complicated workflow could be made and then compressed, picked out by someone other than myself as a way to use that same workflow, and they could make small modifications to it, but the output would be relatively similar to what I did.
We're thinking we celebrate creativity. I think that's how we ended up with two different directions. So I feel like having this red generator, it kind of gives you like multiple results. You know, you take whatever that's being generated as a starting point, and then you can push it further.
This arrow code generator, we ended up doing something that we felt was a bit more unexpected and really reflected our personality as a story.
It's less about making like a function to put more about having fun.
Brands, which are it's like a static big over the past 20 years. And I think that with the introduction of AI, that whole relationship between the studio and the client is going to change.
After the death of LA Capone, 600 members would be devastated, but ultimately nothing would stop the gang's activities in the streets. While the murders they were committing were grabbing headlines, the music they were releasing was racking up YouTube views, and soon members would wind up getting more attention than they bargained for. Rondo number 9 became a reputation as a violent loose cannon, often having his roots with LA Capone. It also collaborated with DJ Victorious on the track We Don't Get Around, song which featured Rondo and Dirk, referencing the loyalties between their groups LTF, 600, Oakland, and 300. Also dropped one of his biggest hits, a remix to the P. Rico song Hang With Me, which was notable for its extensive disses aimed at Tucker, the 15-year-old GD in 2011, as well as shouting out infamous mobile shooter T. Roy, and they go on drills together. Steam in the rap game, and the members released a string of anthems after LA's murder. Many places in the town of 600. One infamous track was the disturbing song about the hit and gang activity on the streets to that of the major terrorist organization released in November 2013. The song would also include This Is a Dead House video featured menacing scenes where 600 members would dance around with an array of high-powered weapons, including one particularly terrifying MAC-10 submachine gun. This gun was featured in many videos and pictures associated with 600 members, and infamous Fox fans being referred to as the 600 Man. This would eventually cause fans to make calculations of all the times this infamous gun was actually present in 600's music videos and social media posts. A component would mention the Mac in a live stream where he got the gun in the world, and he was still showing it off in 2017 when he got out of jail and claiming that excellent work in their ops with this gun.
Man, that took me, man. That got dropped over to me in my hands, and that was 2012, 13. I seen four of them still 2017. I got up there. Them guns, you gotta let go, especially when we already had put in flashbang around the
It's week the 600 infamous and trend would continue as Rondo and other members would continue to release high-profile songs, no damage to releasing come out with Little Dirk. But at the end of 2013, it would be more than music that had Rondo's face going on. In 2013, Rondo was one of the most legendary images in Chicago history. In the photo, Rondo could be seen holding up an anti-tank rocket launcher, or as fans would refer to it, RPG, rocket-propelled grenade launcher. It's a kind of weapon straight out of Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto, and something a lot more at home in a real war zone like Iraq or Afghanistan. With something like this, it would truly make sense of the fact why they call Chicago Chirac. The photo itself would go viral on social media, reinforcing the image of 600 members as real savages who practice what they preach and really waged war in the streets. However, it also caused a major alert for the local police department, and an investigation would be carried out immediately after, and a literal wanted poster would circulate among Chicago police gang units, explaining that they believed that rocket launchers were actually circulating among Chicago gang members, posing a genuine danger to the public, with pictures of the weapon and Rondo's own mugshot displayed prominently in a wanted-style poster that went around. In the aftermath of this incident, the photo itself was swiftly removed from Rondo's Instagram, but by then it was too late. While the image was going viral, Rondo would tweet an angry message where he would deny the weapon or the photo was even real. Luckily for Rondo, it would hint the investigation was closed, and no leads were arrests regarding that specific weapon. But later, in an unreleased snippet of his Instagram, Rondo would even mention that his house was actually searched or visited by federal investigators following this incident. The next year, Rondo would reference the situation in his song Trust Myself, where he claimed that the incident actually brought a lot of publicity. This would become an infamous moment in Chicago drill, with many viral videos being made about the situation and garnering millions of views. Years later, Mimo 600 paid homage to Rondo, posing with an RPG and gun store himself. Media outings such as these not only contributed to the image of the 600 as one of the most savage sets in Chicago, but it also endorsed the image of Chicago as a real war zone. Coming into the turn of the year, the hype around the Chicago drill scene was reaching its peak, and at the time, the term Chirac was being used heavily in the media, as the media was creating narratives about the violent death toll in Chicago being higher than the amount of US soldier deaths in the military conflicts in places like Afghanistan and Iraq. However, However, in fairness, as many news outlets would also point out, such unqualified headlines were actually largely distorting the reality on the ground. The point that they were making was that Chicago was in fact not only the deadliest city in America in total homicides, but in per capita terms, it didn't even make the top 10 most violent cities. Therefore, the implication appeared to be that the violence in Chicago was slightly overblown if you were looking at it on a per capita basis. But that just goes to show you how powerful the antics of drill rappers were during this time. The symbolic shock of seeing a drill rapper took an RPG straight out of the US military arsenal was hard to ignore. They had the whole of America terrified of Chicago's streets. However, make no mistakes, whilst other cities were indeed deadlier than Chicago on a per capita basis, certain areas of Chicago, like the south side where 600 reside, and the more violent but less infamous west side of the city, were in fact still setting records for concentrated violence. While the year of 2014 would actually turn out to be the safest in decades of the wider Chicago, in the neighborhoods around which Chicago region we live in. So even if you didn't think the city of Chicago was anything like Iran, the boys from 600 were living in a true Chirac water. The savages around the streets there were becoming increasingly violent as well as famous. In 2014, we would see things reach breaking point of 600. Some of their most famous and violent members would be hell-bent on waging war on their arms. But unfortunately for them, this time the authorities would be far behind. And for members like Rondo and C-Day, the small mistake would ultimately wind up seeing them losing everything in an instant. On the night of February the 21st, 600 members Rondo, real name Ben Massive, C-Day, real name Courtney Ely, K600, real name Monte Carpenter, and Lil Boo, real name Ron Anderson, were at a party in an area called Murdertown. The party was located at 39th Street, Wentworth Gardens Housing Project, which was actually once considered to be the best public housing project was actually and in that photo, Rondo can actually see the girls, some of whom were part of a female-led rap group called Pretty and Pink. Pretty and Pink were making a name for themselves in the early drill scene, releasing several songs and music videos, most of them filmed by the drill legend DJ Ken. This group would even get shout-outs from Chief Keef, and in their music videos and on their social media, they can often be seen hanging out with members of the BD sets around the Washington Park and Woodlawn areas, particularly 600 and Logan. Some of them can also be seen making 600's music videos, such as 600 Part 2, and in their songs, they would even claim 600. On their social media, Pretty and Pink and 600 would use the moniker P&P 600. Seemingly, these girls quite literally identified as members of the 600 gang themselves.
That's nice. Smoking, like.
This group included girls like Hannah, who was one of the main rappers of the group. Even making tracks with Chief Keef, she also made music under the artist name Big Pink, and in recent years under the artist name Hannah Wynn. The other main rappers were three all out on the six expensive new artist named Big Pink Riri. Called Shady, whose song Go In was a hit in Chicago in 2011, with the music video standing now on over 1.5 million views. This music video was also then to do some good work. Dance cameo in the video dropping a tiny handgun. And then there's Amia, aka Lil Pink, who is actually D-Rose's sister, and Ray Ray, who was seemingly GBE Capo's girlfriend before his untimely passing in 2015, as well as many others. However, many of the members of Pretty and Pink were not from 600's hood, but were actually from the Murdertown area where this party was being held. Moreover, they certainly weren't the only girls who had been spending time with 600. According to court documents, on the night of February the 21st, 2014, 600 would end up spending time with three girls in 600 neighborhood. At some point, Rondo and C-Day would leave the party with one of the girls in her van. Meanwhile, one or both of the girls still in the party would allegedly get into an argument with the members of Pretty and Pink, supposedly about a song that was being played. Perhaps this song was a Pretty and Pink song, played by fans, but during the argument, someone threw a gun in the air to stop the promotion. Now, the remaining 600 members, Tay and Lil Boo, would then leave the party with two girls, as well as Tay, who would allegedly make a call to C-Day, telling him what just happened at the party. However, Tay would later deny making this call.
These say that I called for the bailing, bro. They say I called for the bailing and that happened, which was a lie. That's why they said it. She got to understand, they locked her ass up in perjury. When she got up there and locked up in perjury. We ain't gonna be suspect. Let's not forget that.
Soon after, they met C-Day, a girl, Wendy's restaurant, and headed back to Wentworth Gardens with a plan of carrying out a get-back attack on whoever had fired those shots. Documents would show that D-Rose was also present at this time and got into the same car as Rondo and C-Day. But this time, a man named Javon Boyd was waiting around the Wentworth Gardens area in his car as he had been dispatched for a job. shift its attacks at Rondo. The car itself had no company livery or any indication that it was being used as a taxi at the time, so to the average person, this just looked like a normal car. The three vehicles carrying 600 members would make their way to 38th Street and Princeton Avenue. And here, they spotted the idle car and noticed a man inside. The convoy then made a U-turn. Rondo and C-Day would exit the vehicle and approach the void. Witnesses would then claim that they saw C-Day and Rondo open Javon's passenger side door and fire into the vehicle 4 or 5 times. They would then return to their car and leave the scene. However, unbeknownst to them, they just made a grave error and touched Boyd's car with their bare hands. Their police would later find C-Day's fingerprints. And to make matters worse, C-Day did also once again describe at the crime scene. This now being the second time C-Day didn't tell them. Simply in the process also implied that he had indeed taken part in the murder of Fathead, during which he had previously left his phone in the van. In the murder, C-Day would then return to the scene with 2 of the girls. Once they would see that the scene had already been taken over by police, C-Day would then send one of the girls to try and retrieve the phone by talking to the cops, claiming that it belonged to her. This would turn out to be yet another great mistake. That girl would then proceed to give a full story about what happened. The last name would be a real phone number. Police in their efforts to locate her actually succeeded. They found the three girls would begin opening up the police. It was ultimately 3 hours. Squabbling pressure almost seems to conference in my effect of court. Due to the freshly coloured clothing the pair was wearing, making it very easy to be identified upon calling. One of the girls later told investigators that C-Day had questioned the driver as to where he was from. Unfortunately, Javon Boyd was actually from his neighbourhood. However, according to Javon Boyd's family, while he'd been in trouble with the law when he was younger, he was not gang affiliated, but simply just an honest man working 2 jobs and trying to make ends meet. By simply telling the truth that he was from that neighbourhood that day, Javon Boyd would have unknowingly sealed his fate by killing Javon in cold blood on the spot. Just because of where he was from, Rondo and C-Day would also seal theirs. Eventually, on the 7th of March 2014, Rondo No. 9 would be arrested. Soon after, charged with the murder, followed by C-Day about a week later, with C-Day receiving no chance of bail due to his prior cases, while Rondo's bail was set at $8.2 million. And despite his now rich and famous friends like Lil Durk and Chief Keef, as well as Fredo Santana, Rondo ultimately ended up being for trouble. Series. Now, immediately following this murder.
Damn it, I know this kid's only 7. How dumb could he be? I gotta apologize in advance because I can't read this nonsense that he's typing all this bad foot vernacular. I can't really pronounce all this. I'm gonna give my best effort to enunciate some of this. I need to be one of Rondo's No. 9's associates on that name because he's tweeting everybody and everything. And he's probably incriminating them too. He tweeted a bunch of Lil Durk, and I'm guessing probably, or hopefully Lil Durk wasn't involved. But he's tweeting so much, the cop probably asked him to investigate Lil Durk as well. He tweets out, "Don't sneak this us, or we will come and kill you." God damn it, getting a high off that gun smoke. God damn it. If this is a new stupidity level that's going on in these streets, I need to stay my ass in that house.
Meanwhile, police investigation would find that the phone left behind by C-Day was damaged and had been run over by a vehicle, and moreover, the phone had been remotely wiped. Being that C-Day had just realised this possibility earlier and not sent one of the girls on a dummy mission to try and retrieve the phone from the crime scene, that girl may not have been identified and then captured by police, eventually turning to the witness that began the whole process of bringing down both C-Day and Rondo. Police would also identify C-Day and Rondo's gang affiliations, as well as their music careers by listening to their songs on YouTube. They didn't even realise that Rondo had actually worn the same outfit he committed the murder in a music video uploaded to YouTube just a week before the crime. However, the case would soon take a turn and would end up almost breaking the whole 600 apart, as rumours would soon begin to spread about somebody snitching in this case. Soon after Rondo and C-Day were brought into custody, the legendary Chicago scene news site College Kid would post an article about Lil Reese denying online rumours that Rondo or C-Day were snitching. However, soon the rumours would begin circulating around another member of K600. Although at this point the fans weren't aware that Tay had allegedly been at the scene of the crime with Rondo and C-Day, one of the first to accuse Tay of snitching would be OJ from the 600 affiliated Labron set, who in 2014 was sent numerous shots to his now deleted Twitter account. Interestingly, OJ himself would receive snitching allegations years later when paperwork concerning the murder of Fathead would come out, with OJ being ironically accused of snitching on C-Day in that case too. But then, in June 2015, things began escalating quickly as C-Day sent a cryptic tweet suggesting that somebody was no longer part of 600 due to them snitching, which the fans would believe the cipher was referring to K600, who would respond by vehemently denying allegations and seemingly dissing E-Day directly. Soon, other 600 members would chime in, with some seemingly staying neutral, while others like Boss Noon and 600 Breezy would engage in Twitter beefs with Tay. Although at this point Breezy would still say that he hadn't seen any paperwork on Tay. Meanwhile, the Chirac scorekeeper himself would also also weighed in on the matter, claiming that it was in fact C-Date who was snitching on Rondo.
And according to the shot, he said this. He said, "See, Rondo, he gonna help."
snitch, Rondo was always cool and respectful. Now, let's be clear. We're talking about the guy who's a domestic, the guy, the only savage, took Randall a weapon of mass destruction. Trump is claiming Rondo snitching.
Then, in 2016, things would really begin to heat up. In March, it was reported that the trial of Rondo and C-Day was being delayed due to an uncooperative witness. Rumors would then start to spread. One of these witnesses was Tate himself, who instead of cooperating, had actually gone on the run, with the US Marshals being deployed to locate Tate, eventually finding him with an illegal weapon. However, once again, information about his arrest would come up sparsely. Meanwhile, Rondo and C-Day's trial would move ahead. On the 11th of March, it was reported that both had been found guilty, facing 45 years to life, with 600 Breezy, who had apparently been at the court tweeting the bad news. Other members like Josh Blow and Islam would react, naturally being devastated at this loss. An emotional 600 Breezy, some error Twitter, K600, snitch, blaming him for the outcome. At this point, pretty much everybody in or close to 600, including people like Lil Reese, would begin to attack Tate for snitching.
I don't know if this is 600. I don't know about this snitching. I'm not my homies.
However, Tate would still lock up at this point, but once again come out and firmly deny any snitching allegations. In April, the Chicago drill vlogger legend Zach TV would post a clip of a jail phone interview with Tate, together with an explosive description of what Tate allegedly told him during their full conversation, although the clip itself would provide very little new information, besides Tate claiming that people were hating on him because he had been intimate with their girlfriends. But then in May, C-Day finally was sentenced, receiving 38 years. This was followed by the sentence of Rondo in July, who would receive 39 years, just one more than C-Day. In August, DJ Academics were reported Tate, on the other hand, received a 30-month sentence for a gun he was caught with when he was arrested earlier that year. Also in August, Say Cheese would drop their interview with 600 Breezy, who would explain that he was stealing paperwork and made a statement to the police. That was the beginning of spying against one of C-Day during the trial.
A lot of people take 600 pounds. But you have to do that paperwork for you, right? You have to see it. It's like an assumption. They do cases like that, but I ain't gonna be able to speak on it too much. Like, that paperwork gonna be public, though. Like, you know what I'm saying? When it's specific like that, on certain assets, that paperwork. We seen it. Everybody from this block seen it. If we went to that courtroom, that lawyer let us see it. So we just not gonna lie on it. We love this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like, keep us out here with it being better thought. You know what I'm saying? I told him, like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I told him one time after, you know what I'm saying? I told him, like, dude, I feel like you just made a mistake. You know what I'm saying? I wouldn't have did nothing like that. But that pressure got on him, and he felt like nobody was going to know what was said in that interrogation. But he ain't touched that stand. He didn't touch that stand, bro. He didn't think it was all good.
He then also gave an interview to Say Cheese, confirming that Tate was no longer at 600.
Now, a lot of your fans wanted me to ask you about, Tate 600. Hey, I went situation. Tate 600, man, you already know, man. He ain't right, man. Told him, man, he told him, bro, no, something bad right. You know what I'm saying? Your fans want to go, like, is he still 600 or is he not? Hell no. Okay, dead. So he's no longer around, can't come around? No.
At this point, fans were looking for any kind of proof as to what actually happened. Right then, a bombshell would drop and go viral as an alleged statement given by Tate would drop online, seemingly showing that Tate had indeed snitched on his friends. However, this statement would turn out to be completely false, as Tate would explain to Say Cheese in December, at this point already being a free man once again, having already gotten an early release.
Let's talk about this statement. My thing was about that statement is he's so dumb and stupid. You scared for nothing, you fall for anything, man. For one, that ain't have a paper. My baby that did 10 years in federal prison and like 10 told me, I was short, we had a paper that was about this big, man. It let you know who said what and what said what, and it wasn't a pen like that fake ass that you just wrote. And then for two, they got my birthday wrong on that. They say I was being held on 26 in California when I was doing an investigation. That's the address to the Cook County Jail. That's not the address to the police station, which what I was in that, you get me? Then, like,
Yeah, my fucking tail on something. I'm fucking top.
And at the time, I'm gonna tell the truth, I didn't know Leandro before Courtney first.
Yeah, and that, I didn't even meet him till I was a teenager. Me and Rondo, I met Rondo later on, and we was going to grammar school together. But I never went to high school. I never went to grammar school to see that. We went to grammar school with Rondo, and it was about a year till I graduated before that. Then I never went to high school with C-Day. We ended up arguing each other about turning to school for probably, I think C-Day got kicked out like the first day I got to midnight and get kicked out. But you know, he ended up too, and I thought he just didn't make no sense.
17, the narrative was turning in Tay's favour as reports about the released court documents, not including any proof of Tay snitching, would begin to spread. In March, Tay would drop a song called The Truth, where he rapped about the case, saying how people called him a rat and never seen him in the papers, as well as saying that 600 was still cool with the women who had testified in the court against Rondo and C-Day. Also in March, Glad TV would post a clip from their interview with Tay, where he would explain what happened with the case, saying how police had told him that they knew he had been present during the murder and tried to intimidate him to tell more, but he didn't budge, explaining that he wasn't scared because there wasn't any proof that he had been there other than some witness statements.
The simple fact, they can't prove that I witnessed anything. I know this. They can't prove nothing like that because of the simple fact of I'm not on camera doing nothing. You know, it might be people identifying me saying that I saw it or I was at the scene or whatever, but you know, that's my word against theirs. You feel me? That ain't nothing that they can automatically just put a perjury on. You feel me? Like, that's something that I had to have a trial within itself. You feel me? So I wasn't really worried about that. They didn't threaten me with perjury, right? Investigation.
They would also accuse 600 Breezy of lying about seeing any paperwork about him.
They was down there. People told me they never seen Breezy, you feel me? And so if he came briefly left. Like, he didn't even stay long enough to see a lot of things unfold in the trial, you feel what I'm saying?
But even Fredo Santana would tweet saying that Tay didn't snitch. In August, it was even reported that Rondo himself was denying that Tay snitched in his new jail phone freestyle, which Tay would take as yet another victory. During 2018, things were seemingly beginning to calm down, with Tay even releasing part of the call between him and 600 Breezy, which locked up, where they would chop it up about the past and hashing out their differences. But on the surface, there was a lot of tension. The relationship between Tay and the rest of 600 seemingly wouldn't be amended. C-Day was supposed to lose their appeals by confirming their sentences of 38 and 39 years. Rondo would also get mad at Vlad TV for reporting how his legal team had attempted to pursue a new trial based on the fact that his previous legal team should have more vigorously argued for the theory that C-Day was the sole shooter. Rondo's anger would then turn to Tay, with him, the snitch and a rat. Rondo would continue in a jail phone call recorded by a friend where he claimed that one of the eyewitnesses that had been tracked down was Devontae Carpenter, Tay's government name. However, for Tay, these documents would be more than news, as they would become available for free online, showing that he wasn't mentioned as a witness for a trial. This time, Tay was also officially announcing he was changing his artist name from K600 to Taken Home, with the last name, of course, being a tribute to his fallen friend LA from 2022. Epitaph would post to his Instagram story claiming that 600 members only distanced themselves from Tay in fear of what other members might think, and arguing that Tay never actually stated he did the show. Very messed up with some of those members who have seemingly stuck with Tay throughout the his relationship with Tay, saying that he was locked up during most of the drama and that he hadn't seen any paperwork about him and he didn't care what other people thought. In 2023, Tay posted a photo of himself hanging out with 600 stood. Trigger Esther, on the other hand, would reflect on his relationship with Tay in his recent No Jumper interview, saying how he can't turn his back on his brother and that they had fought but eventually come to an understanding.
You and Tay still tight? I see like a lot of people who have like turning back on Tay. You was one of the first ones I see that came together in the interview.
Yeah, I can't turn my back on, but
I get back to soon. Like, what was that conversation like? They're like a real brother come save me. So that's congrats.
Yeah, he's been celebrated consistently for 600 members. He gets started for members. He is following this C-Day. Jail for C-Day also shared that he went to trial with a defender for a gun. Smith Rondo decided to go spend OTF at the time. C-Day was ultimately there for nothing and pretty much felt that Rondo sadly, there seems to be little hope that either getting out before serving their full sentence that they ultimately deserve for playing a role in the senseless murder of an innocent man. All this was honest and told that he was from the area. Rondo C-Day were dangerous individuals that shouldn't have been on the streets for the safety of the public. C-Day constant activity, he was literally hell-bent on killing people on a regular basis during his time. So despite their potential as rappers, really they were shooting stars. They wound up facing the consequences of shooting space and the benefit of wider society. But I can understand why this is a hard pill to swallow when Rondo and C-Day were seemingly so close to Representative. Their sentencing for this murder put an end to their potential success in the music industry and represented a huge waste of potential. Rondo can be seen in his active interview anticipating his success in music and believing that he was headed to the top.
To the top. That's what it is.
After Elaine Plum was killed, Rondo was the next promising rap prospect in the 600. Unfortunately, both artists would lose their careers to the streets in different but equally tragic ways. And today, the duo's biggest song, Faithful Keeps, with 60 million views on YouTube, is considered as a classic in the genre, which shows just what the new affects Lil Durk's career and his OTF label that Rondo is part of. And reaching 2024, it's painful to imagine just how much Rondo took away his one bad decision. Rondo's solo music was also one of the best attention. It's rare to find a video that left 5 million views of this. Rondo has been making big moves in the industry and has been told the most critique about it.
Let's start with the collab one more time. Like, real, like, there's already, like, at the top already. You don't see what's up here. It's already. 12. See, back up into this already. That ain't.
C-Day also have promised in the music industry. He was featuring on a song with Rondo that now has 1 million views. So he's having a close relationship with the relationship team. But now, risk photos of their aging, gets to see what unfortunately the 600 Rondo and C-Day, one of the only famous members who wound up facing a lifetime in prison. With only 10 days before the murder of Charles Boyd, another prominent 600 member allegedly committed a high-profile murder, and ultimately see them taken off the streets for good as well.
Rank improved AI decisions by 42%. Chatbait. When AI started answering their key queries, Rankman used Chatbait to improve visibility instead of routing traffic. It tracked AI overhead performance, identified citation errors, optimized content for AI answers, grew AI visibility with Chatbait.
They don't move. The only thing they have on the inside of these little silicone grips on the side, they rub hinges so they do not move. Like finally my glasses can stay in place without having to readjust them every time I look at it. It came in a 35 to get rid of colors black, white, and brown depending on the color of your glasses. They're basically not usable because they are silicone, they can't stretch to fit over your hands. Like this is what I would consider life changing.
Someone is alleged that Lil Reese and Lil JoJo bumped into each other in traffic where shots were fired, with JoJo releasing a video recorded seemingly in the immediate aftermath of the incident, which made it look like he was chasing Lil Reese, shouting "King on Killer's efforts." he was the one who put Reese in traffic and that Reese wasn't in the shits. Before later seemingly admitting that it was Reese that shot JoJo, but Reese fortunately missed. A few weeks later, JoJo then tweeted asking his followers who wanted to see a picture of him standing on the Oscar Glamour, which I believe was this picture, with Reese replying suggesting that JoJo's recent tweets are straight snitching, suggesting that JoJo's activity has got the block hot over Glamour, and JoJo clapped back saying that they were on the block and Reese was nowhere to be found. Then, only a few days after this incident, it all goes down. As on the 4th of September 2012, JoJo leaves his house at noon, allegedly on his way to film a music video. However, around 4 p.m. it became clear that what JoJo was filming wasn't quite a music video. As little JoJo reports himself and his friends driving past on Reese yelling BBK at him out the window in what I believe must be Chicago Drill's very first drive-by argument. JoJo then immediately posted a video of this altercation onto Twitter and YouTube, and even in this video that JoJo himself shared, we see JoJo taunting Reese from his car, followed by a little Reese saying pretty clearly that he is going to end little JoJo. Following this incident and the posting of it on Twitter, both JoJo and his brother Swag De Niro continued to taunt Reese on Twitter, and JoJo himself was going to make suggestions that he was outside and available for smoke if anybody wanted to meet him in person, and little Reese specifically, and then, around 7:30 p.m. local time, JoJo went on to share his location, saying specifically that he is outside on 106 Pine to right hand, and that, unfortunately, would be the very last tweet of little JoJo's life. It was around 9 p.m. that same evening, standing on that very block where JoJo tweeted that he was, what looked like a tan Ford Taurus pulled up on JoJo, opening fire in a drive-by shooting. Now, there's conflicting reports as to whether or not little JoJo was riding and died on the evening that he was shot, but regardless, what we do know is that after being shot, he ran a short distance before collapsing his cycle. 6 shell casings were found at the scene. However, it's been said by numerous people, including JoJo's brother Swag De Niro, that JoJo was only shot once, with one of his friends who was actually at the scene telling reporters later just how bad the injuries were.
We all right there. We see JoJo on the ground and left side. They turn him around, she see a big ass hole like this for. I'm like, boy, hell no, you can't get hit like one time for my life, though. The girl said they shot like 6 times. They started.
After JoJo had been shot, the shooting continued to travel east with 2 cars following time, with one being Ford with an Audi and another being a silver car with a spare wheel on the back. JoJo's killers would flee immediately, but not for long. And seemingly, the identity of at least a couple of people involved would be revealed many years later. But the thing is, regardless of the division of JoJo, considering the events that unfolded earlier that day, all eyes were on Reese, Lamont, and the 300 affiliated lands. And ironically, much like little JoJo's done himself, they would end up making things a whole lot worse. What do we do?
You caught up in this shit. It's real life. It's where little JoJo got killed. Stains on the burn, you feel me? Shit. This is right here. It's real. The same thing.
After JoJo passed, 300 affiliated BDs from local on his death of mine, kickball made fun of the fact that JoJo does his bike and social media.
Not JoJo, shit's like
JoJo fucking cheeky fired off a now legendary cold hearted string of tweets saying, it's sad that JoJo wanted to be just like us. Hashtag fucking life. Hashtag Rich Nigel here. And another saying that he got through Hillsborough squad. Hashtag 300. Which naturally he didn't already look the day after the 300 had been killed. So it's unsurprising that following these tweets it turned out there's a little into Chief Keef's involvement in the crime. And after this emerged, Chief Keef quickly changed his view, publicly claiming that the earlier tweets would have resulted in being hacked, denying any involvement in this tragedy, JoJo's death, then saying he didn't even know JoJo, but JoJo was young just like him, then tweeting a painful respectful tribute, sending prayers out to JoJo, and then, very wisely, deciding to take a break from Twitter. Stop right now! And JoJo's mother even went on television and claimed to Keef directly by name for her son's killing.
staircase.
Repeat and stop falling.
I don't believe him. Yes, that's all that should have happened. And somebody needs to go away.
Actually, the picture that's right
There he is.
finally get some news. Steve's cousin and self-confessed people killer, Kado, fired off the tweets supposedly revealing JoJo's killer's work, naming infamous Overwatch shooter, one string of King Kong factory to the left of Fredo Santana, and a non-rapping shooter from Lamron named Kiki. Fredo Santana became out responding to these tweets, then Kado Kado came out not long after this to say that his Twitter will be made too. Yes, publicly doesn't really know until JoJo. For the record, it's not he wrote Fredo Santana for anything to do with JoJo's killing. And while not strictly a suspect, but somebody who definitely would have been happy about Little JoJo's demise, Lil Durk eventually addressed the situation around a year later when he ended up linking up with Sway, saying that people in Chicago who get killed over Twitter seemingly a reference to Little JoJo.
You can get killed over Twitter by something you say on Twitter.
After this, Sway ended up asking Durk directly about JoJo, which causes a swift demeanor change from Lil Durk as he gets incredibly uncomfortable and continues to hear off camera looking at somebody in the room.
Little JoJo was killed, right? Yeah, I ain't even gonna get into it and ask you about that, but a lot that triggered the Twitter, right? Yeah, I ain't even gonna ask you about that, but when you brought that up,
Right.
that's what made me think about it. Man, it's intense.
Look, I know it'd be a super explosive end to this story to find out that the real shooters were Chief Keef, Will Reese, Lil Durk, who in the drill left downstairs and then speeding off in a helicopter up to 300. But reality is never actually something. In fact, Brandon Lil JoJo later would tell Zach TV that Trap Beef had nothing to do with them and JoJo's killing was indeed straight up street business.
She was doing nothing, bro. This shit was real live, street business, you feel me, man? I ain't none of that rap shit, none of that shit, bro.
The dominant theory of what actually went down is that JoJo posted his location on Twitter, trying to draw out Lil Reese, Lil Durk, and Chief Keef as part of the ongoing rap feud that was clearly attracting him from Durk. By doing this, he exposed his own location, other Brick Squad bombs from the 300 affiliate group AMG, previously known as SMB, as well as Lamron, wanted Lil JoJo dead for non-music-related reasons, and ultimately were able to benefit from him revealing his location to the rappers he was being picked in order to do an unexpected drill on him. But the question still remains, who killed Lil JoJo?
Catch that man! Get him away! Must I do everything here?
Today, federal prosecutors have linked Lil Durk in deadly Dax gang enterprise, accusing him of using the OTF label to fund murders, robberies, and drug rings. Even while trying to outrun the streets, Lil Durk always kept actual shooters and killers around him too. Before OTF, they came to the Lamron from D-Town, the gang controls the neighborhood directly north. Together, they used the number 300 to represent their shared black cycle ties. The gang tracked the names Lamron 300 and D-Town 300 under a banner that belongs to them known as DTMR 600, essentially standing for the D-Town Lamron Alliance. Through that alliance, Lil Durk would become closer with D-Town K-Ski and D-Ski, who would later become known as OTF-DD. During the summer of 2009, Lamron and D-Town would end up losing 17-year-old Terrence, better known as the streets of Lil Mo, who was gunned down on the 6400 block of South Eggleston Avenue after an argument broke out. At some point, a four-door Grand Prix would creep up from 64th Street, and a man would hang out the passenger side and open fire. When the gunfire stopped, Lil Mo had been hit, and the gunman fled, leaving him to die at the scene around 11:58 p.m. His death was personal because he had been pushing Lil Durk's music.
He used to come, Lil Mo used to bring him to the hood like this, man, my homie rap. You see what I'm saying? I'm telling Lil Mo just bring him to the studio, because that's how he was. Like,
His house was around, and he was OTF Edie's cousin. Later, OTF Lil Varney would claim that Lil Mo got immediate get back on the person who shot him in the mouth and knocked out his tooth. The alleged settlement documents say that Varney lost that tooth during a police raid the following year when an officer stomped on his head. Officers would apparently pick up his tooth and search the apartment, falsely accusing him of having a firearm, detaining him, and he would later receive a $20,000 settlement. But after this, rappers from mainly Gangsta Disciple sets, including Lil Jojo from 069 Brick Squad, also known as Jojo World, would begin dissing Durk's murdered friend Lil Mo in many of his music videos. Even Tuka from STL EBT would tweet, "Catch him, leave him slumped, now his body laying, now they miss you just like Mo." But despite the dissing, the alleged shooter was later identified as Tonebone, a Gangsta Disciple from No Love City who was reportedly facing up to 60 years in prison. From there, Lil Mo became one of the first major losses, shaping Lamron and D-Town's memory, but the next loss would give D-Town its current name, as according to the police report, D-Town Taysky was walking on the Normal Avenue in Lamron while friends were standing on the corner. Moments later, a newer gold Cadillac DTS would drive southbound on Normal Ave with the rear driver's side window rolling down and shots being fired out of it. During the shooting, Taysky would be hit in the hip while the other BDs returned fire, and he would eventually be rushed in a pickup truck bed to St. Bernard Hospital, where he sadly didn't make it. Years later, cold case detectives interviewed another witness about this murder who admitted that he was on the block and recognized the people inside the Cadillac. In that account, the witness identified Marlon Boyce as the driver and said that Boyce fired from the driver's side window while Antonio Reynolds fired what appeared to be a machine gun from the back seat. To detectives, he described a direct attack from 057 Shields, a mainly Gangsta Disciple set around 57th and Shields. After Taysky died, D-Town became more widely known as Tay-Town in his memory. Although police took 3 years to arrest the two suspects in Taysky's killing, the alleged Lamron and Tay-Town get-back came within a year. Inside the police paperwork, investigators called the next death a gang retaliation shooting. On November the 3rd, 2012, Travis Henry sat in the passenger seat of a gold 1996 Cadillac DeVille on the 5600 block of Shields, while a female witness waited behind the wheel. Soon after, a powder blue van would return, stopping near the Cadillac, and a man stepped out of the passenger side with a handgun. As shots rang out, the female driver ducked, reversed, crashed into a nearby gate. That night, Travis Henry was hit 5 times in the chest, once in the forehead. The scene, multiple witnesses recognized the shooter as OTF DD, while the driver was described as a heavy-set male with a caramel complexion and short dreads. Within 2 years, DD was arrested on first-degree murder charges, but the driver was never identified. From there, he spent years behind bars fighting the case before being released on bond in 2019. By the time he beat the case in 2023, his name already carried a fearsome reputation. Within TTE and OTF circles, DD became known as Big Threat, with younger Tay-Town members adopting names like Baby Threat and Lil Threat in respect to his status. However, DD would also end up being arrested in 2025 alongside Lil Durk. By 2014, Team 600 had become famous all over Chicago and the wider world as both a gang and a collective of drill rappers. 600 started 2014 strong, with one of their first releases being the sequel to their big group anthem 600 on the 30th of January, dropping 600 Part 2. The music video for this track now stands at over 14 million views. And when 600 had released Part 1, they'd already lost several members, but the original song included L.A. Capone, who was still alive at the time, one of their most loved and respected members, and their clear #1 star in the making at the time. Part 1 was the introduction to this all-star drill team to the public. However, after the death of their biggest prospect, L.A. Capone, Part 2 was seemingly 600's way of letting both the fans and their ops know that despite this huge loss, 600 could not be stopped. Either in the drill music scene or in the streets of Chicago. The hook of the song seemed to reference 600 losing members and planning to kill for the gang in revenge. Both Estop and Tay600 would also pay tribute to LA in their verses, while E-Day's verse would have some eerie foreshadowing of the tragic events that would take place not even a month after the video's release, where he rapped around Rondo finishing the job and taking the charge. And talking about foreshadowing, in the video, people could be seen wearing 3D Rose shirts. Now, D-Rose is one of the most infamous and dangerous savages in 600 who's been shouted out as a prolific shooter numerous times by other people. At the time of the shooting of the video, D-Rose was simply locked up, but he would be released already before the music video was released. D-Rose, real name Arbias Sardin, was originally from the area known as Motown, which is a large black East Stone stronghold around Sherman Park on the south side, with Moes being the common nickname for the members of their gang deriving from the Islamic beliefs. In early photos, young Negroes can be seen throwing up 5, which represents the 5 star, the symbols of the Black Eastones and the people nation that they belong to. Negroes' father was a well-respected Black Eastone leader known as General Ranger. This name likely deriving from the Black Eastones, originally known as the Blackstone Rangers. General Ranger was known for making money, but also giving back to his community, and he would reportedly hand out school supplies and food bags to children in the area. Unfortunately, Ranger, real name Aloy Sardine, will be killed in 2006 during a robbery all the way in Texas. As Tay600, aka Tay Capone, will later explain in his YouTube channel.
His mama and his daddy really from his mama and his daddy's Motown originals. You feel me? Both of them. His daddy got killed way before all of this. Then he got killed out of town.
D-Rose's mother was also a well-known and loved figure in the area, and D-Rose simply had a very different upbringing from many of the other kids in the area, as his mother made sure that none of her kids attended the public schools in the area that were well known for their poor performance and problematic behavior, including gang activity. Another detail which Tay600 will break down in detail on his YouTube channel.
D-Rose's mama, she a gangster, she from the block. I mean, she from the town, she a real sweet girl, but she always wanted the best for her kids. She always wanted the best for D-Rose. Like, shorty, like I always tell y'all, the shorty, we went to good schools, Carter, Dunbar, Sexton, Dulles. D-Rose and his siblings didn't go to none of those schools. D-Rose and his siblings was going to the private school that was smack dab in the middle of the school.
Indeed, the other members of 600 attending the public schools in the area would get into all kinds of altercations at school. One of these schools was the Dunbar High School in the Bronxville neighborhood, which was known for its heavy gang activity and violent gang-related incidents. One Reddit commenter on the Chiracology subreddit shared a story about his uncle attending Dunbar and the various sects that would clash at the school. According to Tay600, LA Capone used to get into fights there weekly due to many of his friends quitting school, leaving him all alone in class to fight against his odds.
Like, when I went to school, like, LA was like a little money. He had hard money. He ended up going to high school. And by the time he got to high school, the guys was without the guys dropping out the corner, got kicked out. A lot of ops came in. But he was not feeling, he was content on going to school, you know what I'm saying? And the ops wanted to make him not go to school. So he had to go to school. He would jump once or twice a week. Beat him, fight, real bad fight. Every week, man, I'm steady-handed, something going home, and I'm focused. I had to be like, he's still out there, he's still going to school.
While D-Rose's parents were both from the gang background, they were doing their best to try and make sure that their son didn't get involved in that kind of stuff. They were giving him and his siblings the best life they possibly could in this troubled neighborhood. Unfortunately, their efforts could ultimately not stop D-Rose from becoming the product of his environment. From a young age, D-Rose would hang with his elders on the block, yet increasingly sucked into the gang lifestyle. Many videos would later circulate, seemingly showing D-Rose getting active in the streets, where he would be filmed throwing up gang signs.
Take no picture of me, bro. I didn't take this is every boy. Yeah. Now we look. Kyle, smack the bucket, Sunday.
One video would go around where he would be seen beating up and robbing a bomb on camera. D-Rose would even film himself after he got shot.
Still, I really just shooting on my leg, man. Still want to see him late night me and maintain. You know, they just shooting out our leg for King Day.
He would film himself sliding in cars with Rongo, as well as little Dirk Cheap Wood, as well as posting clips where he claims he was smoking tobacco and shooters.
You know, there are a lot of explosives to my shooters. I'm saying to my shooters.
Despite only dabbling with rap, D-Rose himself was seemingly infatuated with drill music, regularly turning up to the gangbanging anthems that his friends like Chief Keef were making.
It's 10 p.m. Do you know?
Although he was originally from Motown, D-Rose was seemingly an original 600 member who had lived in the neighborhood long before 600 gang had even formed. Having moved there with his family in 59th in Indiana when he was still a little boy. The private school that D. Rose attended also had many Front Street members, which is how he would allegedly first become affiliated with these local gang sets. D. Rose was also reportedly cousins with G. Moomer and 50 Shot Moore, who were prominent members of the Folly Boys set, which is located in Motown, where his father Ranger was from. And on subreddits like Chiracology, D. Rose's affiliation is commonly put as 600/Folly Boys. Eventually, this lifestyle would bring him the nickname D. Rose. And although he used to be an avid basketball player, likely a fan of the actual player D. Rose, aka Derrick Rose, an NBA player from Chicago, the nickname D. Rose would in fact have a much more sinister meaning, with T600 saying he got the name because he only needs one shot to kill his boss.
D. Rose, he wasn't always.
Keep your eyes peeled, man.
He got his name, D. Rose, for only needing one. All I'm gonna say about that, shorty only need one shot, it's over. He don't need a lot of family, he don't need one.
Indeed, the court documents from the murder of FPG Duck would actually reveal that D. Rose was implicated in a murder that had taken place all the way back in 2011, when he would have been just 13 years old. This being the murder of a boy named Dale Bishop, also known as Squirrel, who was from STL's neighborhood. The allegation was that D. Rose was one of the shooters in Dale's murder, as told by FPG Butter, who famously became one of the cooperators in Duck's murder case in 2023, along with YouTuber Trenches News, with Butter allegedly telling the prosecution that he had witnessed D. Rose together with the short but super savage Leroy from O-Block killing Dale in December 2011. Sadly, many members of STL and Dale's family claimed that Dale was not even involved in the streets or gang life, but simply just hung around people who were. Shockingly, some people have even suggested that Dale might not be D. Rose's first body. Indeed, D. Rose's murder rap sheet allegedly runs a lot deeper than this. All the more shocking when you consider the fact that he was barely a teenager during these years. He was also rumored to have been involved in the murder of King Doc. The EBT set, specifically the EBT side. Doc was shot whilst walking near 63rd St. Lawrence, the heart of STL's territory, and somebody opened fire while he was in front of the corner store, striking Doc once in the chest. Doc would then try to escape across the road through a patch of tall weeds into an empty lot in the 6300 block of St. Lawrence, but he would ultimately succumb to his injuries, later being discovered by his relative, a boy named Modell McCambry. Now, anybody that's seen my video, King Von Rap's first serial killer, likely remembers that Modell himself would also meet an equally tragic ending to the murder, with O-Block's King Von, who would have been involved in both murders along with P-Rod. Anyway, following the social media activity of EBT members after Doc's death, it appeared that police thought that the disciples were responsible, particularly Matt Brick City, aka 600, who led top suspects of this murder. However, many of the OG Brick City members were actually gangster disciples who had beefed with members of Lamrock just a few years earlier. As we know from Lil Durk's early lyrics, this in the set was his 2009 song R&D mode. Brick City's younger generation, on the other hand, were primarily black disciples, which ultimately became a front set. A new generation that called themselves 600. As K600 implies on his 2021 song Way Back When, where he says that a lot of members would flip from PD to BD when they joined 600. Online comments complicated from 600 might have been involved in the number of dogs. D. Rose actually came parts from Contender. However, if that wasn't enough, there's also another completely different dog that D. Rose also allegedly brought. This was a little dog from a so-called No Love City on the west side of the Dan Ryan Expressway, specifically from a set in that area. There's very little information available about this dog. The other thing we do know from his cousin Squeeze, though, is that he died on the 13th of August 2012. The reason why some people think that D. Rose had something to do with Little Doc's death, also to do with his cousin Squeeze. As following Doc's death, this D. Rose at 600 numerous times. However, what makes this case confusing is the fact that there's simply no news about the murder that occurred on the 13th of August. In this case, consisting in the news article about 19-year-old killed by security guards after shooting at them in the early morning hours of the 13th. This took place in the far south side suburb of Bridgewater Park, which is possibly why some people claim that Doc was indeed killed during hitting a lick. However, this doesn't seem to match the description of his cousin, who later tweeted several times about the murder seemingly happening on their block. He even tweeted about running to the location where Doc had been shot, that location being on the Elizabeth Street right next to Fruit Street. Doc's cousin would also claim that he knew who killed him, but later has implied that he doesn't know, with there seemingly being too many rumours out there. So it's very difficult to say whether rumours about D. Rose's involvement in this murder are true. Furthermore, D. Rose has also commonly been rumoured to have been one of those involved in the killing. Now known as Gojo, GD rapper who went to war with Lil Durk and with the recent Lamrock set with an enormous target on his back. He released a song beating the film all black disciples in Chicago to be killed. On the 4th of September 2012, Gojo dropped that song BDK and caused an avalanche of hate and death threats from black disciples. He would even post an infamous video where he confronts Lil Reese on the street, yelling at him whilst driving by.
I got you.
seemingly not scared of the black disciples that he'd upset, tweeting that he was outside on Brent Squad's territory. And it's believed that soon after this event, several cars traveled to the location searching for Jojo, where a security camera was catching him riding a bike together with another boy when a couple of cars would follow along behind them. Both Jojo and the first car would move beyond the camera's view, and soon the other boy could be seen running away from the scene in the opposite direction. One of those rumored to have been inside one of those cars, he was himself. Another popular suspect was a young member called Inglewood-based BD set called SMB, Power Moneyballz. He's perhaps best known by your fans for People's Army Chief Police classic diss track War 2014, when he found out who was the man when he was captain, and then and 600 like Ellen. A few years later, this Jojo by joking about his fate on the car on Twitter, and Bond is fully accused of that the name to be connected, whilst he was still friendly up to their voices as them. Word spread of D-Rose's activities, and kind of a lot of respect in the streets. Moreover, once rookies have become a nationwide and global phenomenon around the world, made a real celebrity without dropping a single song, particularly due to Chief Keef often shouting him out in songs, portraying him as a teenage assassin. D-Rose would even make a rare cameo in Keef's early music video for the song John Madden in 2011. Then, in October 2012, only about a month after Lil Jojo's death, Keef would also put out one of his biggest hits to date, So Simple, he raps the line, real classic, but men include D-Rose boy, he's a double O boy, better keep that cold boy, you got that dog, you know. In fact, ever since October the 8th, 2012, the video Games released a preview of the Los Sosa video ending on lyrics about D-Rose. These lyrics were ultimately become trending on Twitter, although at this point, many listeners still thought that Chief Keef was actually talking about D-Rose. There's nothing hilarious viral tweets with clueless fans in shock that a professional basketball player, Derrick Rose, would be putting in work for 600 on the streets. As Tay600 would later explain on his YouTube channel, D-Rose was perhaps the first person in history to become famous for just being a shooter.
Before we yelling his name, you feel me? Before yelling his name,
You there! Stop! Mine!
Become a celebrity right before our eyes. Like, it got to a point with D-Rose where D-Rose, the guys around, like I seen Fulham turning into fans of D-Rose, and he was not making a song. He didn't make a song. Like, he didn't make a song, bro. You feel me? It was just flat for being a savage. Like, I didn't understand it. So, like, this, he was the first to do that. Like, become known off being savage. You feel me? Like, that was just real loud. I never seen that before in person, in a rap. You know what I'm saying? But D-Rose was blowing up like some type of celebrity. You know what I'm saying?
With D-Rose's name ringing hard in the streets at this time, and it's even said that he repped as many as 7 different gang sets, or at least had very close ties with them. With these sets being 600, TYMB, O-Block, THF46, Front Street, Glam Rock, and the Folly Boys. According to Tay600, even the infamous shooter Tay Savage, aka Chicago's John Wick, all the way from Welch World in the low end, would attempt to recruit D-Rose to join his Welch World set, as he knew what serious shooter D-Rose was on the streets.
He said, man, the nigga told me, he said, Tell Rose, I said, hit my mind, man. Tell Rose, he said, he got everything he wants on him. He got it. He gonna put Drake in this nigga. Gonna put Drake, ARP, whatever he wants, whatever Rose wants, he got it. Okay, he ain't gonna be on the top for Rose. Big whole time. Rose gonna take he probably gonna take a Rose like other gangsters too, bro. Big Rose like other gangsters too. Kenny Bag, this man coming to the crib trying to recruit me, Rose. It's just like that.
No criminals, no.
This and that, just strong more artillery, more scientists in a circle, more demons in your vicinity will be recruited and gangsters.
Due to his young age and his reputation, even D-Rose's mugshot would eventually go viral. In September 2012, D. Rose would get arrested, causing some of the biggest savages in Chicago to call for his release. Chief Keef too would eventually tweet Free D. Rose, together with an Instagram photo, finally letting even his mainstream audience know exactly who he was talking about in his songs. Other youngsters would even tweet to Keef, telling him how they had seen D. Rose while they were in jail, confirming that he was banging for 600 crazy was inside. While some people seemingly associated with D. Rose would tweet criticizing Keef for not bailing him out with his newfound rap riches, some seemingly thought that the arrest was even related to the murder of Lil Jojo due to the timing, but this wasn't the case, as someone would post from D. Rose's own account. And his co-defendant Juice the Savage from Front Street would later tell that the case was actually for an unrelated armed robbery and attempted murder case allegedly taking place in a studio.
I mean, just taking a step back, so what was the case that y'all got locked up for? I mean, since it's in the past now, like, can you talk about it? You and D. Rose?
Yeah, man, it's nigga that many people almost together trying to rob his job, trying to take his money from school.
They had a lot of stuff, somebody picked us up a video saying that me and D. Rose did some.
T600 would also tell how D. Rose had in fact been wearing his black puffer jacket when the police had finally caught him.
He running around the hood, I get my coat. Now 2 days later, after me giving him my coat, we in the block, he peel off and get bumped. The that bumped in my coat, man. I wasn't blue, but I was like, dang. You feel me? I just got that damn coat, fuck. You feel me? But look, they get locked up in my coat, right? So now, this the picture. This was his first mugshot he ever had. You feel me? Now he gets locked up in my coat. I'm looking for the picture. This is his first mugshot ever. This is Twitter right here. This is my coat. That got locked up in my coat. I was blue.
However, at this time, D. Rose was still a juvenile, and therefore placed in a juvenile temporary detention center, or was better known in Chicago as Audie Home, named after Arthur J. Audie, the superintendent of the first such center in Chicago. And as D. Rose was a juvenile, he also wouldn't have a public mugshot taken until he was finally transferred to the county jail in June 2013 after turning 17. This mugshot would immediately go viral, as Chief Keef fans could finally put a face to the name of the infamous Savage from the songs, immediately cementing D. Rose's status as Chicago's #1 celebrity savage. And this mugshot would become iconic, was used in the covers of various mixtapes, as well as on custom D. Rose shirts which members would seemingly make and sell. Most famously, D. Rose's mugshot would eventually become the icon of the infamous subreddit Chiracology, where Chicago drill culture is discussed in depth on Reddit, ultimately cementing D. Rose as quite literally the poster boy for Chicago drill. Finally, in mid-January 2014, D. Rose would end up leaving this case, getting back onto the streets of Chicago, and even his pops would immediately take notice of this. D. Rose was finally free, with all eyes on him, a whole world of opportunities in front of him. Perhaps had he taken rapping seriously, his life story could have taken a drastically different direction. Unfortunately, D. Rose was as gangster as it got. Rapping was secondary to his main career as a savage, and soon he returned to the streets with his reputation as a shooter to live up to. And ultimately, it was only a matter of time before he'd find himself in trouble with the law. Before that had happened, numerous people would lose their lives to his hand.
Most web designers that I know wear all of the hats, and I get it. We can do it all. Somewhere in there, the actual design becomes the thing that we have the least time for. Before Framer AI agents, designers will spend hours making changes on things like CMS management, SEO, but now there's an agent inside the canvas that speeds up the process, which means the time goes back into the idea rather than the admin. And yet, even though it's powered by AI,
it would appear that D. Rose hit the streets running, ready to capitalize on his newfound fame, and soon after getting home, he could be seen hanging out with his famous rapper friends. On Monday, April the 28th, everything would come crashing down as the news reported that D. Rose had been arrested and charged with the murder of Denzel, with D. Rose being held for $1 million bail, and news articles even mentioning D. Rose's affiliation with 600 and famous real rappers like Chief Keef. Shockingly, despite the famous and rich friends that D. Rose supposedly now had, particularly Chief Keef and Fredo Santana, nobody would come to bail him out, as this would have likely required a 10% payment of the $1 million bail, meaning in this case, $100,000, and gave that being completely non-refundable. Perhaps nobody felt like bailing out Chicago's biggest savage or great investment, so D. Rose would begin a long way to his trial behind bars, with members of 600 and his other threats friends settle in for tweeting about Free claiming his innocence rather than actually bailing him out. The trial of D. Rose would eventually take place in late 2016. Later court documents provide a picture of a rather messy trial. The kids lived in Venzel that tragic night and our witnesses. While at the time of the murder, they'd still been rather young like Venzel himself. In the years that followed, they'd since grown up, many of them seemingly becoming more active in the gang lifestyle themselves. Darren Wilson, who's known as D-Money from Luke, Gerald George, who's known as Luke from World. Both D-Money and Luke seemingly originally indicated D. Rose as the shooter. During the trial, they would deny any identification, as it seems that the no-snitch policy has since become a guiding rule in their lives. As the years have gone on, they've gone deeper into the streets following the murder. However, others, like D-Money's older brother, would testify that D. Rose was indeed the shooter, even during the trial. In the end, D. Rose was indeed found guilty, being sentenced to 40 years in prison for the murder of Venzel. Around the same time, D-Money would leak his personal account, repeating his stance through the trial. D. Rose didn't actually kill Venzel. Perhaps this really was the case, and D. Money hadn't actually seen D. Rose at the scene like he originally told police in 2014. Or perhaps he was simply fully committed to his new stance of no snitching, instead wanting to face D. Rose in the streets and get personal vengeance. Because D. Money would then grow up to become a feared member of Type 1 World and an alleged killer himself. At one point, he would even allegedly be captured on Roblox security cameras with his friends, creeping and scoping for a victim, eventually killing a man who ended up not even being from Roblox. He would even allegedly film himself on Instagram Live only moments before the murder, would then beg a YouTuber who had recorded the live to delete it off their channel. Unfortunately, this usually comes with that life. D-Money would eventually meet the same fate, as he was killed in 2021 on his home turf of Woodlawn. After D-Money's death, another Type 1 World member called Two Times would post a tribute to D-Money, implying that D-Money had killed a total of 3 people. D. Rose, on the other hand, would appeal his conviction, but this wouldn't help either. In 2019, the appellate court would affirm his sentence. But still, there's plenty of people who have spoken out about D. Rose apparently being innocent, including his old co-defendant, Juice the Savage. Also, the YouTuber Trenches News used to be posted with many sets around Washington Park and Woodlawn neighborhoods, as well as the members of 600 like Tate and 600 Breezy. Following the appeal last month, Instagram called D. Rose and Instagram. There's also been many attempts to fundraise and raise awareness for his case for another appeal, but he's told people nowhere. Still, the alternative theories and list numerous other suspects. One theory circulating online suggested that Lil Luke from 600 was responsible. This theory is supported by the fact that 600 Breezy claiming a DJ Glad interview that the person who shot Venzel was a 600 member who is in fact now dead.
They found him recently and people are going to court saying he did. But truth is, when I don't think I killed him. But I can't go over. We don't know how to go about that. But that's still, even though he's gone, it's still like snitching. Like, no one still, like, they ain't gonna try to do that.
So D. Rose came to you and said, listen, I need you to come in and testify, and said this dude is now dead. Did the crime that I'm in jail for life for, so I can go home.
I mean, I wouldn't be able to do it because I wasn't there.
As far as someone who had to be there, as was discussed, Lil Luke would unfortunately end up losing his life about a year after the murder of Venzel. This theory would also explain the clue from Luke after the death of Lil Luke, where he disses him while saying R.I.P. Venzel. There are even theories that the shooter wasn't a member of 600. One theory suggests that Front Street members of the may have actually been the shooter. This has been supported by Type 1 World members, commonly tweeting Front Street K or 061K, which is the main street that Front Street claimed, as well as Savage 40K, another Front Street affiliated set, and off with a record label of Front Street's most famous rapper, Venzel's close friend TV, Derek Barrett, Craig Mondon, claimed that he believes Pedro was sentenced to live, or simply inclined to real dog records from Front Street. He claimed that Capo from Front Street should not get. This is particularly interesting, given that TV would be considered the one who actually but the overall he repeated that he was smoking on Big B, even shouting out 600, despite both sets being 600, using the walk from Type 1 World from a Type 1. Perhaps the most interesting theory is based on the facts known about this case that came out in the trial. There's one particular fact that has many people convinced about who the shooter was, and that's the description about the clothing that the shooter was supposedly wearing. This description comes from D. Money, who had immediately followed the shooting, described to the detectives that the shooter was wearing a white cap, white shirt, and red pants. This is interesting because at the time, there was a member of 600 who would commonly wear red pants, and that person also been in the supposed murder vehicle just the night before Venzel was killed. That person wasn't D. Rose, but instead C-Day, who had practically made wearing red pants his trademark at the time. Of course, this alone doesn't prove anything, but this leads many people to believe that D. Rose was in fact innocent of the most high-profile murder that was ultimately convicted for 4 years. There have been arguments in the trial, the fact that the witness not only knew D. Rose from social media, but they also knew the other two people who had been seen in the alleged murder vehicle the night before, C-Day and Rondo, and thus they would have recognized one of them to be the shooter instead. Nevertheless, if you believe D. Rose was not responsible, it would seem that the Chicago police are still aware of D. Rose's reputation as an infamous killer, and were looking to do anything they could to get him off the streets. King Von would actually refer to this in his song What It's Like, where he would rap in a verse that he was in the jail cell with D. Rose when he received his sentence. And Von ends the song with a chilling outro where he claims that the same detective that locked up Rondo, C-Day, and D. Rose bragged to Von about locking up his friends and told him he intended to do the same thing to him when he was facing the murder charge of Malcolm Stuckey, a charge that Von ultimately ended up beating, coming back at the end of 2017. Von claimed that that detective had told him that locking up him and his friends was like a game to them. But interestingly, Chicago police are refusing to release any reports concerning the murder of Venzel beyond the original incident report, claiming that the investigation is still ongoing or that the reports are still incomplete. For those believing in theories about foul play on behalf of the CPD, this certainly raises more questions. But let's not forget that for these gang members, killing their enemies or even innocent people just for where they're from is also a game. And ultimately, whether or not you agree with everything the police do in Chicago, the fact is, taking someone like D. Rose off the street is being done for the safety of the public. And perhaps had he not become famous the world over for being a shooter and killer, then perhaps the police might not have worked so hard to lock him up by any means. On the other hand, K600 would reminisce on Twitter, saying that D. Rose had basically grown up in the prison system since he was just a young teenager. This combined with the fact that he would become known amongst drill fans as a cold-hearted killer at such a young age, due to rappers like Chief Keef hyping him up, then it's understandable to see why his life would take the unfortunate trajectory that it did. Ultimately, once again, another 600 member had been taken off the streets, losing their future to the gang war that made them famous. But going forward, even with prominent members off the streets, either dead or in jail on both sides, as the year went on, the remaining members would continue to wage war in those streets. And, in music, as songs would go viral, detailing the losses on both sides of the war, with twisted lyrics claiming to be keeping score of the tragedies, and in the process giving the whole world an insight into exactly what was going on in 600's hood. King Von's blow-up in 2019 would help make OTF one of the most coveted labels when it came to gangster and drill rappers who really practiced what they preached. Many 600 members had always been somewhat close to Lil Durk and OTF, but they would become even closer with the help of King Von, who had practically already been a member of 600. On the 9th of January, Mimo 600 and King Von would release the collaboration remix to Mimo's 2018 hit, Exposing Me. This song would become a drill classic that spawned a slew of other remixes, both for dark and moody Bollywood soul beats, such as the FBG Duck Ruger version that would end up becoming even more popular than the original. And New York rapper and alleged fake blood CJ with his chart-topping hit Whoopty, which would actually eventually lead to Mimo and King Von's version of the song being taken down from all streaming platforms due to copyright issues.
Where did you find the beat? I think YouTube, and I contacted the dude. First of all, I did the beat, and he contacted me. He made up a big fan, and from now on, we blocked him. You know, the Exposed Me is the same beat that CJ used for Whoopty. And then CJ ended up getting y'all some taken down. How did that even happen? FaceTime, they say, man, I ain't even know that. Because they say, like, from their label, that's the reason why I was struck down. He ran on the contact them.
Anyway, just 6 days after dropping the Exposing Me remix with Von, Mimo 600 and Just Blow released their song in a music video titled Gangbangin', which now sits over 3 million views. In the music video, Just Blow and Mimo can be seen in a trap house with other members toting guns and throwing up sets, literally gangbang. But also in the studio, Lil Durk himself will be seen listening to their song intently while popping his head. At this time, Durk had already signed Buka, whose song Peso had made some waves in early 2018, and who had even dropped a full solo project on the label called Six Summers, as well as performing on 2 OTF compilation mixtapes. Then, in March 2019, Durk would announce that he had also signed Mimo and Just Blow to OTF. Also in March, King Von would put out his song Cousins featuring Just Blow, followed by a music video in April with a freshly signed Just Blow and Mimo could be seen together with Von, Durk and Buka repping OTF to the fullest. Provided with the opportunity, Just Blow would then keep dropping and building his catalogue under his new label, as Mimo would keep his foot on the gas, dropping another highly popular song and music video titled Steppers, which now stands at 1 million views. Meanwhile, Luca was preparing to go on the second solo for RPF by went to LA. Luca had truly found his own voice as an artist by this point, often dropping highly melodic and emotional drill ballads all about the life of the streets, such as the Phil Collins sampling from the Get Bands, which will surprisingly have its music video released on the No Jumper channel. The video would feature nostalgic flashback clips from when LA Capone was still alive, along with C-Day and Rondo No. 9 still being free, all while Luca sings about losing his friends but gaining success, as well as the song All Scars, where the music video shows different important streets and locations from around the Washington Park and Woodlawn neighborhoods where Luca grew up, while he talks about the tragedies that he's seen in those places and the friends from around those areas he grew up with. Luca would also get some notable features on his songs, including T. Grizzly, Lil Durk, and Lil Zay Osama, who would also later sign with OTF. But while Luca, Mimo, and Just Blow were now living a good life with OTF in Atlanta, internal disputes began within 600 started to pop off, with S-Dot releasing his version of Exposing Me, which was actually a diss track aimed at Mimo 600, as well as dissing him on social media, later opening up about the beef during his 16-show interview.
I ain't gonna say no names. In Tate Basement, always Tate, anything, Rondo, D-Roll, figure the Elite Squad. A lot of Joe Fed, a lot of what we go fit, a lot of that's like got a name now. You can even come in Tate Basement, bro. That's real. We ain't gonna spare it. Like real, we will. What's up? Check that shit. I ain't gonna keep it on. Keep funny. I'm gonna keep it down. Feel me, Shawty, I just ain't right there. That's all it is. Hear me? I don't know what's coming next. What's coming? We don't. We catch it, we gon' beat it. We gon' beat it. Already strip it. That's what you got. That's just what it is. I ain't. That's. We don't know the rules up. You start everything. They don't want to let you know nothing about it. Feel me? Get on your. You feel me? It's a lot of that you don't even know that about that. That's waiting to see. I ran into him on the streets. I seen he really went like. Run up on the park when he really went up. Time sense like that. Sense like that. That's some work that's made the radio stuff out. Same sense on the street.
At the end of June, while Mimo was seemingly back in Illinois, he would end up getting shot 3 times. Later was a video of himself being transported by a helicopter and laying in hospital bed. He would later open up his incident during interviews, explaining how he'd been in the suburbs surrounding Chicago and all routine what actually happened that day is largely unknown.
I got shot in my head. That's what came up with my chest. I got shot in my head. That's what came up with my chest. I was man. That shit. I was just saying something else that I got
The Mimo wouldn't let that stop him. Already a few days later, he was back to Chicago for a music video, this time with a song by Chronos. Then from July, the videos from over 600 affiliates, such as O'Block Members Email, so had seemingly recently received some kind of injury from some hand, while Mimo had survived the shooting. A few months later, Morrison's Fox would be so lucky. Interestingly, this death would come on the birthday of one of the most beloved former members of 600, Mimo's brother, Little Steve. Life achieved by the Oregon State's high school, but ultimately he chose to pursue a life on the streets instead. Luckily, as time went on, Just Blow had seemingly gotten his life back on track, signing a record deal with Lil Durk's OTS Collective, plotting a career as a rapper, and putting him in a position to potentially be one of the few 600 members that actually escaped the streets through music. However, that dream would ultimately be put in jeopardy in December 2020 when Just Blow was arrested for a 2017 home invasion that went wrong, leaving 1 man dead and 3 others wounded. On October 31st, 2017, Just Blow, together with a member called On Site, the 600 affiliated group Nico Gang, along with a female member called Dice from the low-end base set OBM, they would allegedly try to rob a man in Hammond, Indiana, the same city where 600 Burger lost the line only a few months later in January 2018. According to court documents, Dice, real name Paradise Haynes, had tipped off 2 of the others, On Site, aka Tyler, and Just Blow, aka Mitchell, after she had seen a man she knew holding $4,000 on Facebook, but the robbery didn't go as planned. The trio had allegedly gone into a man's apartment acting like they wanted to buy something to smoke. At one point, Haynes and Tyler asked to use the restroom, while Just Blow allegedly received a gun they had seen in the apartment earlier. When he returned, the 2 others also pulled their guns, and the trio demanded to know the location of the money that Deese had seen on Facebook. Unfortunately, at some point, the fight ensued, and bullets began flying from 19-year-old Khalil Carter was killed along with 3 other victims who were shot at the scene, aged 18, 19, and 17. Dice on site were charged in 2018, and Dice eventually entered into a plea deal cooperating on the case and informing police of Just Blow's involvement. She would accuse Just Blow of being the one who fired the fatal shots that killed Carter. He faced multiple charges, including murder, aggravated robbery, and criminal confinement. If convicted, he's facing between 45 and 65 years. Lima 600 would share his heartbreaking Facebook following Just Blow's arrest. In 2022, news would report that Just Blow, aka Mitchell, had actually pleaded guilty to a lesser charge of robbery resulting in serious bodily injury. In 2023, reports would emerge that he had been sentenced to 18 years. This was a story that proved that the streets can still catch up with him years later, and he was trying to do something positive. Unfortunately, Just Blow wasn't the only one.
I respect you being honest enough for work every day, but once you to just wait 12 weeks for your paycheck. If you need $100 to make it through the day, you are not alone. There's this app that I love called Earn It, and with it, you can get up to $150 a day with a max of $1,000 in between paydays. It's your pay, your pace.
OTF Boona was another key OTF name, later tied to OTF's violence in Atlanta. Originally, Boona came from Brain Dead, also known as Wiz City, a set of gangs operating in an area southeast of Lamar, closely allied with Dirk Squad of Inglewood. When he was 18, Boona was arrested for armed robbery with a firearm. He would be convicted and sentenced to roughly 10 years. After doing his time, he was back around Dirk's circle in Atlanta, acting as a bodyguard for him. He was seen flying on private jets with Lil Baby, moving around major OTF connected figures in the rap game, but that visibility came at the worst possible time. Because after King Von was killed in Atlanta, OTF lost one of Chicago rap's biggest rising stars, and also one of its most feared shooters. From that point on, OTF allegedly became a target of the Ops and the Cops. In the weeks that followed Von's death, his sister Kayla B became one of the most visible people carrying that pain. By spring 2021, a rumor spread online that Kayla B's chain had been snatched in Atlanta. Kayla would deny the robbery rumors, but people noticed that she would post the chain to prove that she still had it. Within days, online speculation would be followed by gunfire. Later that April, a shootout erupted outside of the Buffalo Wild Wings at Cumberland Mall during one of the busiest shopping days of the year. According to police, the shooting involved 2 sides, multiple people, a green Dodge Durango Hellcat, and 3 victims, including 6-year-old Louis.
Witnesses say they saw people in 2 cars yelling at each other. Then they got guns in hand.
Reports said the child was struck while exiting a truck vehicle, then pulled to safety as more shots were fired.
They got back in their cars and sped through the parking lot while one man was leaning out the window. Shooting. In the melee, a man and a young boy, about 8 years old, were both hit by bullets. One in the leg, one in the foot. Police say the child was rushed to the hospital.
Afterwards, police arrested 18-year-old Zaire and 19-year-old Ponce, better known as upcoming Atlanta rapper Lil Madman and Run from a group called Money Comes First, or MCF. At the time, MCF was said to be allied with Lil Baby's 4BF crew/gang. Soon after, rumors spread that Lil Durk had allegedly tried to reach Lil Baby to get Kayla B's chain back, but Madman refused. Either way, as the investigation moved into the next month, it pointed directly back to OTF. By then, police issued an arrest warrant for Michael Golden from Chicago, better known in the streets as OTF Boona, who had quickly gone run. In the Cumberland Mall case, investigators said that they identified Boona through a phone that he had allegedly left at the scene after the shooting. Chicago guys just love leaving their phones at the scene of shootings. It's crazy. Now, according to police, Boona jumped out of a moving Dodge Durango Hellcat and fired at 4 people, got back inside and fled. This is like the Chicago guy in Atlanta style pack, just shooting out of a moving Dodge Durango Hellcat and hitting kids that have nothing to do with it. That's the OTF style pack, I'm going to say. Now, notably, while Boona was allegedly on the run before his arrest, Kayla B was the chain once again, with a caption saying, "Get it back in blood," then claiming the snatching was a lie and that he's been at the jewelers the whole time. Not sure I believe that one. Now, that summer, both saying hidden street politics began to target Lil Durk too. Soon after this, Lil Durk's mansion in a gated community in Brazelton, Georgia, would be broken into. According to reports, armed suspects bypassed the gated security at the estate, breaching Durk's property and attempting to enter the home. Inside, Durk and his girl, Maria Royale, would arm themselves and exchange gunfire with the intruders before they fled. Later released body cam footage would show Durk and India telling officers that they woke up to the sound of breaking glass.
So yeah, I'm safe to sleep. What's up here? Okay.
During this interview with the officers, Durk said that his security team often left firearms around the residence, and that India grabbed one, and near the stairs they saw 2 or 3 people with another one.
That's security guy was well. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay. That's okay. Okay.
These seconds later, the intruders opened fire first, and Dirk told India to retreat into the closet. As she moved away, she dropped the gun, which Dirk picked up.
Now, did they shoot at you or did you shoot
Keep your eyes peeled, man.
You shot at
Still be free.
Did they shoot first at you? That's what I'm asking. So they shot first. Okay.
Some speculate that because Dirk was a convicted felon, it's possible that he simply said that India grabbed the gun first to avoid a felon in possession charge. From there, apparently, from the upper level back porch, Dirk would return fire from above until the intruders fled.
Alright. So then once you dropped it, you picked it up and ran to the back porch. And then what happened? Did you say you laid down and watched them? I laid down. Okay. I come in the head, they were like, You shot back, you shot at him? Okay. Okay.
Even the police wondered how the suspects found the house, almost like they knew that someone would be home, and also questioning why would they need guns for a burglary.
Pacific House. Yeah, this is I mean, I'm just saying. Room fires? That's not around here. Well, their security wasn't here, and he lives here. That's what I'm saying. Somebody knows. Well, he's...
Afterwards, people wondered whether this was a backdoor, a targeted hit, or robbery attempt over the multiple bags of cash that Dirk was keeping around his house. Just over a month after the home invasion, Marcus Holland, also known as Big Mark, would be shot and killed at an Atlanta gas station. According to some online rumors, he was linked to the Dirk home invasion, and at the time, Big Mark was affiliated with MCF, the same group that Boona had allegedly targeted at Cumberland Mall, and was also tied in with Lil Baby's 4PF. Then in October 2021, OTF Boona was arrested for aggravated assault with a deadly weapon for the shooting at the Cumberland Mall. Years later, Lil Durk would tell DJ Academics that he was now having 24-hour security that were ready to kill.
I got 24-hour security watching my house. Trained. They're not trained to go. They train to kill.
He avoided saying whether the home invasion suspects were ever caught.
Did they ever figure out who was behind that? That's just yeah. I don't think nobody can. Nobody's ever allowed to my house. Our best friend ever been in my house. For real?
I wonder. Caught by the cops? Caught by OTF? Now, then, in 2024, authorities would officially tie Big Mark's murder to the start of a larger Atlanta gang war. According to Atlanta police investigators, Holland's murder was described as a targeted execution meant to strike a blow against 4PF. Apparently, there was a huge war going on between two groups, one known as 4PF, the other known as OMF, and authorities would describe a long-running conflict that was tied to Big Mark's death and later connected to a southwest Atlanta shooting that killed two 13-year-olds and wounded an 11-year-old. Although authorities allege Big Mark's death helped spark a gang war in Atlanta, it's still not known definitively to this day whether or not Lil Durk had anything to do with it. But together, the rapid succession of the mall shooting, the attempted home invasion at Dirk's house, and the murder of Big Mark led a lot of people to believe that MCF paid the ultimate price for targeting Lil Durk and his family at home. Guys, it's been a busy day in the rack. Okay, Chicago has been absolutely on fire ever since I dropped my last video on this channel. Okay, look. 5 people murdered over Zao Osama's stolen watches. Not my words, alright? Not my words. Simply the result of a very sensational No Jumper interview. If you haven't watched it, go to No Jumper's channel. Watch the Zao Osama interview. It's crazy, okay? If you're not a Reddit disciple like me, okay, if you're not a Reddit disciple like me, this might not be on your radar, but go and watch this interview. There's crazy stories in there. I broke them all down in my last video. If you want to go get the recap from me, you want to get some of the best bits and some Reddit analysis, go and watch my video on the topic. We got into a whole bunch of stuff, not just the 5 people allegedly murdered over these 2 stolen watches, which ironically I believe are the exact pictures, the exact watches in this picture. That's why I used the thumbnail, okay? Don't say that we put effort into this, baby. Okay, I made that thumbnail myself. Take no content slots factory. But anyway, it wasn't just the 5 people killed over these stolen watches. There was also an interesting back and forth when it came to everybody's favourite rapping serial killer, King Von. Okay, apparently Zao Osama had low-key pressed an issue with King Von related to a guy called he's a member of the Gang 600. That, you know, apparently God slid so much for 600, he was basically a member. All right, but this guy Bite Down, this isn't even funny. Okay, he massacred his whole family and domestic. Well, his girlfriend's whole family in a just crazy domestic violence hits. No gangbanging, no points scored. Not that points are honourable or anything like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't condone violence or murders. But he basically did a horrible thing to the family of Zay's cousin. Okay, so look, there's a couple of things I just want to react to today because the actual DMs where Zay is pressing the issue of Bite Down have been leaked today. I didn't really explain that very well, but basically, look, this guy Bite Down, who was friends with King Von, allegedly committed a horrible crime, tried to kill and did kill numerous people, okay, connected to Zay's family. And Zay said he's not feeling King Von talking about free Bite Down, okay? But the first thing that I want to bring up, okay, shout out to Rima for bringing this to my attention, all right? Zay has responded, okay, he's calling out Cap, all right? He's saying that it's not true. He responded to the allegations of 5 bodies being dropped over the watches. His words, all right, his words, go and read them. He's the one that actually originally said that.
So what's that though? For about 5 lives got to run and tell that.
He said run and tell that. He told me what to do. Your Honor, okay, listen, right? I'm telling Jose, he told me what to do. He said go and run the content, okay? You heard it.
That's how I've got to run and tell that.
I've gone and told that. I've gone and told everybody that in this video here. You can go and get all of the juicy details there. But he's clapped back. Okay, he's clapped back to me saying that I will never touch Zay's watches. Okay, now I think he's clapping back to the whole 5 body talk. To be honest, I think maybe this caption, shout out to Shy Media News. This caption's given a slightly soft touch. All right, but this reacted. This essentially posted a clip where I'm basically saying in my video, I will not touch Zay's watches under any circumstances. Trust me, Zay, if you need your watches serviced, alright, we're going to toss over that one, pause, alright, why for that? If you need your watches serviced, trust me, alright, I'm telling you, Richard Billy for Richard Mel for a big deal of service, it will not go missing, trust me, I know the consequences, okay, I know what goes down if these watches go missing, you can trust me, Zay, alright, I will service, pause, your watch, alright, but look, they reacted to this clip and he's saying it's okay.
My God, it's good to be English.
And he leaves his watch on the counter. Leaving that bitch right there, man. I'm not touching any watches from this man. This man is an absolute menace. These guys clearly do not play about their watches. If you thought Little Jeff was bad about the watches, man, should have ran over their watches. Leave people's watches alone, man. Like I said, I ain't trying to say too much. He destroyed the watch. Alright? As they responded, he said, I did learn to nobody. The universe can kill these people off. 100 salute! Exclamation mark. Yeah, listen, alright, look. As a result of all the attention this story's getting, and as a result of these crazy alleged all these bodies dropping over these watches, right? This time it's Little Jeff, before Little Jeff was even a thing. Little Jeff was probably still diapers when Zay was, you know what I mean, when Zay was getting into those watches, right? Alright, as a result of this kind of, this kind of information forever going so damn viral, right, I decided, let me run some classic Zay Osama, man. Let me run, not classic, but let me run some recent Zay Osama, man. You know what I'm saying? Let me hear what that last song said. And, so, into his song, man, Fresh Out the Feds, okay? This dropped on June the 15th, 2025, right? That's exactly 2 months ago. Okay, that is exactly 2 months ago, right? And I was feeling this song, this in the car. I was, you know what I'm saying? I was bumping this with some homies, and they were saying, yo, let's get back into it. And we had to hit a little rewind, because the lyrics went over my head, you know what I'm saying? Like Hogan pointed out. You said they took something from Zay. Where? They had to sleep. Right? Yeah. Fresh out the feds, I'm back on my whole stuff. All my rapper friends say I'm tweeting. And he's tweeting in that interview, but he'd been tweeting this a few months ago, right? He said they took something from Zay. Show them what happened. They had to speak. Now, that's not sounding like he said they did nothing to nobody in the universe can fill these things off. Now, for the record, I'm not inferring that Zay Osama has caught 5 hats on the watches himself. As if you watch this video, we saw breaking down a homie of his may or may not have been involved in the incident that took the life of a THF member called TB, a person who allegedly was involved in that very brazen and ugly hit where a child was nearby. That person is no longer with us. So, you know, clearly the universe has got a whole lot going on in Chicago. I'll tell you that, okay? The universe is definitely getting busy in Chicago. But people, I want to show you something else that has come across my credits today, okay? As I mentioned earlier, this individual from 600 Byte Down that took the lives of people connected to Zay Osama's family, okay? This guy is still in jail. I assume that's where he'll be staying for the long haul, unfortunately for him. But King Von was calling to free this guy. Okay, King Von, alright, King Von was actually out here, okay, basically trying to get him free. Not just get him free, but get him laid, if you can believe that. It's the brutal nature of this life that is frankly unforgivable. That hasn't stopped 600 members and their allies from showing blanket support for Byte Down. For example, a childhood friend of his, King Von, would rap free Byte Down in numerous songs, such as Straight to It, and Think I'm where he would rap saying free Byte Down, and he doesn't fight. But he encouraged female fans to get touched with Byte Down while he was behind bars, and he was now single, and believing that he was due to come home one day. Look, Von was really out here. Von was really online trying to find Byte Down and goddamn new GF after he murdered his last one, who apparently allegedly was Zay Osama's cousin. Not a very nice thing to do. Definitely not a friendly thing to do. Pretty effed up, pretty screwed up, twisted stuff. It's definitely not free Byte Down. It's keep Byte Down. Maybe at a stretch we can wish Byte Down a fair trial, but you cannot be doing up House of Horrors and expecting to get free Byte Down message. Let alone King Von on here talking about getting in touch with my brother right now before he touched down. He's single in big letters, bro. There's a reason he's single, and it's not pretty, okay? But what's been hitting today is that it's been revealed that the actual DMs where Zay pushed the issue with King Von has surfaced, all right? They've surfaced online. They've surfaced on Reddit. A bunch of people have been posting them. Shout out to Remo. So Remo posted these DMs too. And listen, man. Listen, it's looking crazy, all right? It's looking crazy. King Von warning Lil Zay Osama about dissing Byte Down, right? This is what King Von said. I hope you can see that in a minute. Nice and big so everybody can see that. I'll even put myself up here. I'm going to try and do it. I might have to try and do it in the King voice. Oh, gang. No, I'm not going to do the voice. Oh, gang. Hey, do me a favor. Keep my little brother Byte Down name out your songs. That stuff be food. Now, there's a bunch of stuff blurred out here, but what I can see is I can see On J Money shorty ass fried. Yeah, he says On J Money shorty ass fried my MFing cousin boy, my blood, my family on Tay boy, shorty ass gonna die if he come home. MS knew what's up. This stuff ain't nothing new. I don't know if you just found out or what, but MS know. MS know what's to that stuff on J Money, right? And this is Von, clap him back. Well, you should keep that in the street, gang, for real. I'm just trying to give him a bond on O. I don't give him no F what he did, but I understand how you feel. But shit, you know. Nah, you ain't wrong. It's just your songs be powerful, and everybody listening to you. Everybody listening to it, you feel me? It ain't just about what you're standing on. It ain't about what you're standing for or none. It's how you presenting it. And you know how dudes is. They stand for stuff. Dudes don't F with shorty, alright? And Zay posted this, he said, I never dissed Von, never said he ducked his shit, but I had to stand on it. Anybody that's promoting free Byte Down, that's facts, alright? He stepped on anybody that free Byte. Anybody saying free Byte Down, he had to smoke for this. I can't see what he said here, alright? He said, what go on, bro? Something, cousins, Imoni, and I think he's talking about the victims, something with you, 100. That, something, and Toon, throw it out the window perhaps, but I believe there are more DMs that then come afterwards. I listen to the message that we were messing before. Hey, I ain't give no F what go on, bro. Don't say F my cousins, Imoni and Woogie, that's fam. I mess with you, 100. That stuff with you and Toon, throw it out the window. I hollered at you, and I hollered at him. That stuff's dead. You don't mess with each other, don't talk to each other, that's how we're going to play it. Cool. There should be no more arguing back and forth on either side. And Von hit back, he said, man, I don't know your people, Slime. Ain't no dude finna talk to me like no type of way or none of that. Dude got me effed up on O. Nah, for sure. I'm pretty sure this is Zay posting these DMs.
Said Toons said he was arguing with Von, and Von dissed my cousins. Von said he didn't, so I got both of them on the phone after this convo, and they squashed it. So it sounded like Zay stood on business with Von, and you got to give him his credit, man. But everybody was scared of Von out here. I was scared of Von. Von was catching all the hats, all the bodies. He was the most gangster dude out here, all right? And Zay stood on business with him. Zay was not having it. He was not taking it. He was not letting King Von disrespect his cousin and be talking all of that free bite down talk. And I actually respect it. I actually respect it now. Is there maybe one more DM going around? So this is just one last response, some extra context that Zay gave to the situation after posting all of that. He said, never said Von tucked his tail and everything I said. Never said Von tucks his tail and everything I said, I'll say if he was here. So everything I said then, I would say if he was here now. Where is y'all getting the narrative that a dude ever played with me from? I sent my love, said RIP, and Von top 5 in the rank. Stop D-sucking, all of you dudes and females. Any dude promoted that bite down stuff, I said some facts. I don't pick and choose. I'm a man before I'm anything. Actually, look, Von was an intimidating guy, man, and I respect Zay Osama for standing and being so tough with Von in those messages, to be honest with you. I mean, this is a guy that apparently had all the hats. You know, they were saying Von and Bite Down might have been catching hats together, man. The rumor on Reddit is that this little James here, and I discussed this in the documentary, right? People say, is that Von and Bite Down together? Were they sliding together? Who knows? Who knows? But if that's the relationship that Von and Bite Down had, you can understand why he would say free him. But ain't nothing honourable about shooting a female in a domestic violence case. Not cool. We're not condoning that. No passes for that, unfortunately. You're going to have to keep Bite Down. You know what I mean? Wish him a fair trial or wish him.
We have got to the point where literally anything will be fully working out without knowing how to code. This is Base 44. This is the first look at the current industry-leading AI. If you believe the kind of apps that people are creating, smart nutrition apps, inventory trackers, teamwork tools, you name it. If the only thing stopping me from making the apps is the idea, why not build an app that gives me endless app ideas? So let's make it. Pro tip, if it drafts full ChatGPT, drops the prompts directly from Base 44. Gives me super detailed structure. And here it is. Everything I laid out in detail as it goes. This is pretty awesome, but I want to make it playful. So I'm going to add a swipe left and swipe right interface. Same usability we all know. Now I'm going to add one more feature. So if every idea that I favorite will turn into a kickoff prompt to start building the app itself. And that's it. Just come up with your idea, any idea, and Base 44 will do the rest. Go to Base 44 and create apps with your name on it. I can't really wish too much in. To be honest, you're gonna have to sit down on that one, my friend. But yeah, that's the latest from Zay Osama, man. He's popping his stuff. He's been going crazy after the whole Watch interview situation. And I've just got to shout out to him, man. Look, it's these antics and these interviews have made me dig deeper into his catalogue. We've been bumping some Zay Osama today. Some of that's hitting, hearing a couple of songs that I haven't really tuned into before. So shout out to him for doing the content thing, man. Once again, I just want to say I think it's really important for rappers to get out here and do interviews. I know a lot of rappers think they're too cool for interviews, they're too cool for streams, you know what I mean? They want to do all this weird, mixy stuff, trying to intimidate streamers and finesse them, finesse their money out of them on stream. That's all out the window, man. I feel like that you need to showcase your personality, you need to show you're a solid dude, you need to show you're interesting, funny dude, you know, all of that stuff, man. Do your interviews, don't act too cool for school. All of these rappers, whether you're the most gangster, thugged out person in the world, let us know a little bit of your personality. I didn't really deep Lil Zay Osama's personality until this interview, really. Like, this has really put him on my radar. It's put the music on my radar. Yeah, look, we're knee-deep in the antics, and it's very interesting, but at the end of the day, I'm about the music, and he made a couple new songs drop onto my playlist today. Definitely, if you need your watch service, I'm happy to take care of that, and definitely won't lose it. You know what I'm saying? No one running off your watch, safe for me. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next Zay Osama drop now, man. You know, let's simmer down with the antics and just keep going with the music. That's what I'm excited for. Hope you enjoyed that. Hope you enjoyed my other video that I just dropped on the main channel. The entire life story of 4 Extra Man. Listen, let's see how that plays out. You know what I'm saying? Could be reacting to some of that content very soon, man. But make sure that you go and watch that. It's a whole 2.5 hour video. Respect to my guy 4 Extra Man. Wanted to really just tell that whole life story, right?
really wanted to do my thing, and I hope that's a really quality piece of work you guys are enjoying. So I appreciate you. I'll catch you in the next video. This was a quick one for once, but out in passing.
Unfortunately, it appeared that one of the people closest to Von, his mentor, collaborator, and co-defendant Lil Durk, didn't actually know that this had happened. Apparently, only finding out about Von's passing via comments on his own Instagram Live, whilst he was ironically singing along to his revenge anthem Back in Blood, literally rapping along lyrics about King Von shooting people as he discovered the news that King Von himself had been shot dead. As viewers piled into the comments to let Lil Durk know, Lil Durk would go on to tribute the 3 Overclock members who were injured in this incident. Lil Durk would mourn the loss of King Von on Instagram, and frankly, the death of King Von would represent a big shift in the circumstances for Overclock members and